You set a goal, buy the gear, and promise yourself that this time will be different. But at 5 a.m., when it is time to actually lift the weights, the execution feels unbearable. The standard solution to this resistance is brute force. We try to hack our brains into compliance by watching motivational videos, relying on willpower to drag ourselves into the gym. Eventually, that willpower runs out. You hit a point where the monotony of the daily routine outweighs the initial excitement you had for the end result. Relying on brute force motivation to reach a distant outcome is a broken behavioral mechanic. It treats the work as an obstacle to survive, rather than a process to engage with. This is an inefficient way to live, an existence where your daily actions are justified only by the reward waiting at the finish line. When you fixate exclusively on an end state, your mind views the necessary steps as a delay. That resistance generates psychological friction during the actual work. This timeline illustrates the problem. The gap between your current state and your goal is filled with this friction. Because the present moment isn't the goal, the mind stays in a state of irritation and frustration, making the effort unsustainable, which leaves us with a contradiction. If we consciously desire these outcomes, why does our own brain generate the exact friction required to stop us from achieving them? To understand this resistance, we have to look at a biological baseline, the mechanics of breathing. Try something right now. For the next 60 seconds, attempt to consciously control the depth and timing of every single breath you take. Within moments, this simple action feels strained. Manually managing every inhale and exhale is mentally exhausting to sustain. In this dual pain model, conscious control drains your energy battery, but relinquish control to your autonomic nervous system, and it becomes a smooth, self-sustaining loop. Goal achievement follows these same rules. The breathing model applies to psychology, conscious strain versus natural flow. True sustainability in any endeavor requires shifting the action from a state of forced effort to an autonomic flow. These mechanics of friction show up in skill acquisition, like a competitive game of badminton. An amateur player often operates with their attention fixed on the scoreboard. Because they only care about winning the point, their swings are forced, friction is high, and the game ends in frustration. A master player approaches the match differently. To them, the final score is a secondary data point. Instead, their attention narrows to a micro-focus. They are obsessed with tracking the rotation of the shuttle, reading the gaps on the court, and the mechanics of the smash. Because the master player's focus is locked on the mechanics rather than the outcome, their effort becomes frictionless and self-sustaining. This mechanic scales beyond hobbies. It touches on the biological imperative of survival. In the wild, animals operate on an outcome-based system. A predator expends energy only when forced to secure a specific result, like food or shelter. When we structure our lives purely around chasing end outcomes, working only for the paycheck or the reward, we stay in that survival mode. Developing our capabilities requires decoupling our daily actions from the friction of merely surviving for the next reward. An intelligent way of living involves the deliberate cultivation of an obsession with the process of the work itself. This highlights a paradox of achievement. To reach a massive goal, you have to stop looking at it and instead illuminate the path directly under your feet. When you attach your passion to the daily mechanics, the end outcome becomes an inevitable, frictionless byproduct of the process. Meaning is found when the daily journey itself generates energy, rather than draining it.